Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Christina, and in today's video, I am so excited to share with you a recap of October and our plans and goals for November. So October was such a beautiful month, both just like weather and foliage and homeschool, and I feel like we did a lot, but it didn't feel too busy, which I feel like is a really nice balance. We had the opportunity to stay in some really beautiful places that I'd love to share with you today, and we leaned in to our homeschooling rhythms, which I'll share with you a little bit more about. We finished up some things that we had been doing for a while, and we were ready to start some new things. So towards the beginning of the month, we had the opportunity to stay at two really cool Airbnbs, both very different from one another. The first one was Ben Apple Farms, and this is a beautiful farm in Vermont that it has multiple different stays. So there's like the main big farmhouse, which is what we stayed in, which is perfect for larger families or groups. There's the barn, which is really, really cool that you can stay in for like a smaller group. And then there are a couple really cool like treehouse style beautiful stays for couples, so definitely check them out. I will link that down below. We got to study about Vermont ahead of time, and so one of the things that we did was use, and I've shared about this before, we used our Traveling the States guide from the Waldock Way, and I just pulled out the Vermont pages and we learned about Vermont. We read the book M is for Maple Syrup, which is all about Vermont. I don't have it in front of me right now, but we also did like E is for Empire State when we were studying New York a little bit more. And so I love that series. We'll continue to use that as we learn about different states. But here's an example of some of the pages. This is actually my 5-year-old's notebooking. He just turned 5, so he was technically 4 when he did this. Stuff's falling out, but it's not pasted in. But we went over like the state tree, the state bird, the state flower, and then they were able to color it because it comes with a coloring page. And then he was able to trace the letters in Vermont, which was really cool. We talked about the flag and he was able to color that. And then my older kids did a little bit more in-depth notebooking, writing about some of the things that they learned about Vermont. And then we got to see some really cool places like the monument from the Battle of Bennington, and we went to the top of Mount Equinox, which is really, really cool. We got to go to a state park there, and the foliage was just unbelievable, and it was just such a nice time. Then we went to the Catskill Mountain Domes, which was completely different. So we went from this really big farmhouse to our next day being in a dome. And this was a really cool experience. I was unsure about it, but I was really excited to try it. And I was actually shocked how big it felt inside. It did have 2 full bedrooms and a loft, which is like another bedroom, and then like a fair-sized living space, a nice big sectional. It had a bathroom, it had a little kitchen area, and it was really, really fun as well. It had a ton of outdoor space, a fire pit. It had a heated plunge pool, which was really cool. So it was basically like a huge hot tub, and my kids really loved that. The views were beautiful. So I highly recommend either of those places if you're looking to adventure in the Catskills or Vermont. Speaking of the Catskills, I'm so excited because next week, the very first Rooted Homeschool Retreat is happening, and I can't believe it. If you're coming, I'm so excited to see you next week. If you are not coming yet, there is still, as I'm filming this video, 1 more spot left. So I'm gonna put my email down in the description box below. If you live in driving distance of the Catskill Mountains in New York and you don't mind being a little bit last minute and planning the week before, email me and let's see if we can get you set up to come. I would love for you to come. So I'm excited for that. That's something that's coming up for us this month. But before we get too far into plans and goals for November, I want to just continue to recap October. So let's look back at my October list of things that I was going to do. And if you're new here, I do this monthly and I create a list and then I reflect back and see what I actually got to and what I didn't. So I wrote down entrepreneurship unit with a question mark because I knew that I probably wouldn't get to it because we had so many other things we were doing. We still have not gotten to it, have not purchased it, but I continue to put it on my list for something that I want to do in the future, especially because if you saw my last weekly recap video, all three of my oldest kids have started their own cute little businesses. So I'm really excited about that. We are continuing Playful Pioneers. This is something we did last year, took a break for a few months over the summer, and then just started back up again in October. And it's really nice to get back into it. We've really been enjoying it. We've read some really great picture books that are part of it and that go along with it. We just started Wonderful, which I also shared on that weekly recap video. And this is just like theology, or very similar to theology, which goes through the whole narrative kind of the Bible. This goes through the Psalms. So I'm really excited that we chose this because this is technically not part of Playful Pioneers. Theology was the Bible study for the first half of Playful Pioneers, but we finished that and we didn't want to use the one that was recommended for the next one just because I felt like we had that covered in another keepsake Bible that we use. So this I'm really liking. We're notebooking a little bit with this, which I did share in that last video. So that's going really well. That is from the Peaceful Press. If you're unfamiliar, it focuses on American history using the Little House series as the main chapter book read aloud that takes you through the whole curriculum. And then, so it's literature based and project based. And there are tons of picture books throughout that I either order from the library or purchase. And there is Bible included and hymns and art and all kinds of stuff in there. So you could use that as your spine, or you could use it alongside whatever you're learning and just use it to fit your family. What we're also using from the Peaceful Press is the Peaceful Preschool. We started using this towards the beginning of the month and I'm really loving it. I was hesitant to use a preschool curriculum, as I'm sure you've heard me say before if you've been around. And I'm still just using this as a resource. We don't follow it to a T. We don't do all of the activities they say to do each day or each week, not even close. But I do use it. I use the printables, the letter printables that come with each letter of the week. I reference the scripture verses for each week, and then I pull from some of the book activities and art activities and things like that. It just differs depending on the week. And so if you want to see more about this, if you want to flip through more of an explanation of what we do each week, let me know in the comments below. Same for Playful Pioneers. I feel like I've talked about Playful Pioneers a lot, but I also feel like I've gotten a lot of questions about it lately. So I can check those things off because we did do those. Okay, October. I told you guys I was not sure about this. I was not endorsing it yet because I did not know much about it. I just liked the cover and the name. We are reading it and we have mixed reviews about it. I don't want to get in too deep about this because I think I am going to end up doing a video just about books, independent reads and read alouds, but I can say we were hesitant in the beginning. I'm really into the storyline. I think my boys are too, but they're very annoyed with her attitude, which has opened up some really interesting conversations. So stay tuned for more about October. It does deal with some tough topics. Are we halfway through? I think we're about halfway through or almost halfway through. Okay, The Boys Choosing Christian Heroes Then and Now book for independent reading. They have not, because they've been so into their own books that they've self-selected that I haven't prioritized it. So I've shared before that what I typically do is we read one of the Christian heroes, missionary stories, together as a read aloud, and then we alternate, and then they read one independently, and then we do one together, and then they read one independently. I haven't gotten to the point where I was going to have them choose their independent one yet. I also shared that all the ones that I selected were missionaries to China, so we were going to do a very short China unit study from Thistles and Biscuits. We have not gotten to that yet. So I will add that to my November plans and goals, and we'll see if we get to it. So I'm not checking that off. Burgess Birds, we did once or twice. I know we did it at least once because we did it last week. And if you want to hear more about what we did with it, you can go watch the weekly recap video, but I can check it off because if we did it once or twice, we did it. Tuttle Twins, books, and U.S. history. We did neither of those the whole month of October, which seems crazy to me, but it's true. Nature Study Club select lessons. We did do a few lessons from Nature Study Club. We always do the poetry tea time and the watercolor art tutorial, like never fails. And then I select a couple other things, so I can check that off. Read, Think, Write is something that I've gotten a lot of questions about. And this was the sort of relaxed language arts. I am using this very loosely, again, just as a resource I'm pulling from. And I actually do have an example I can show you. My oldest did almost complete something. And I was actually really proud of how well he did with this. I gave him the project cards, which I shared, I think in last month's video. And I let him choose because it was a book that I didn't read. It was from The Good and the Beautiful, so I trusted the content. It was Sagebrush Surgeon, and I gave him the project cards and I said, you choose what you're most interested in and what you think would actually be a good fit for this book. I really want you to enjoy doing this project. And so he combined two of them. And I'm thinking about doing, let me know if you're interested in a video about Read, Think, Write, because I can kind of walk you through that process of what he did. And this is not in his notebook yet, but it will go in his notebook. And he did end up really enjoying combining two of the different project prompts that he felt like both really came together nicely for that book. So that was really cool. I've really been enjoying that for him. So we did do that. Knowledge crates we've definitely been using. We love knowledge crates so much. And I have a video coming out sharing their newest crate. So be on the lookout for that. Is that all that's on my list? Oh, I did write my slow down guide. We did that once, I think. And I shared about that in the weekly recap video that I did the other day as well. So I want to see if there's anything else that we did that wasn't on my list, because that happens too. Thinking about independent reading. I mentioned in that weekly recap that my daughter read Brave Clara Barton. So this was a picture book that was listed in our Playful Pioneers curriculum. So that's why I originally ordered it. And I might still read it to all of the kids because that's kind of what the plan was. But my 8-year-old saw it and wanted to read it on her own, and I was not going to tell her no. So she really enjoyed that. She's currently reading The Courage of Sarah Noble. She's really enjoying this. And she, before this, read The Bears on Hemlock Mountain, and she really enjoyed that as well. What else? My oldest is deep into the Little Britches series. So I said I haven't pushed the Christian Heroes independent read on them yet because they're both really enjoying their book series. My oldest is super into the Little Britches series. Like, he's finishing them within a few days each book. So he is like probably by the end of November going to be done with the series. He also has to do other things, so he'll have to do that too. But I'm trying to think if he's reading anything else currently. I don't think he is. And then my 12-year-old is currently reading Covert Cows and Chick-fil-A, which is a book that he found at the Catskill Mountain Dome while we were there, and he got super into it and super bummed that he couldn't take it with us. So I ordered it from on Amazon. It's all about the journey of Chick-fil-A, which is so interesting because I'm like, this is child-led learning. This is unschooling vibes. He's choosing books about business because he's interested in having his own business. So that was really cool to see. So I wanted to support that. And I think that's all I had on my list for October. Other things we did in October that were really cool is we started forest school for the fall. We did this in the spring and really loved it. And so we just started that last week. I shared about that in the weekly recap video. We also had a field trip with our homeschool group from church where we went to a historic homestead along the Mohawk River, and we learned all about life there. We got to view the home and the barn. We learned about how barns were built, and they got to put together like a model barn. And we learned about making butter, and we got to make butter and taste it. It was such a really cool experience. The kids really, really enjoyed it. What else did we do? Oh, and then last weekend, so not this past weekend, but the weekend before, we did go away for the weekend in the Adirondacks at a beautiful Airbnb called Juniper Hill. And it's an A-frame and it's really cozy. If you're going to the Adirondacks, I highly recommend it. If you're going skiing on Whiteface Mountain, you can see the summit of Whiteface from Juniper Hill A-frame. So definitely go check it out. And they're so affordable, and so I'll link them down below. We're also going again to the Adirondacks once this month, and we're going to the Catskills for the homeschool retreat. Oh, and we're going to Sturbridge Village, which is another historical field trip, I guess. So I shared last fall that we went to Plymouth Plantation in Massachusetts. Sturbridge Village is also in Massachusetts. It's all about colonial settlers and what their life was like during that time period, and they're dressed up like the time period and they talk like the time period, and so it's an interactive way to learn about that time period, and that is one of our favorite ways to learn. So super excited about that. So lots of really fun stuff coming up. We have another field trip with Joseph Bruchac. I don't know if you've ever read any of his books, but he has tons of books that relate to early American history and Native Americans. There are also some of the books are in the Playful Pioneer series, so we've read some. And we are actually going to get to meet him, and he is doing our field trip at his educational center here in New York, and I cannot believe that we get to learn this way. Like, I'm just so thankful and excited that this is how we're learning. This is their education, and it's also my education. Like, I have learned so much alongside my kids, which is super exciting. Oh, we started just the other day, 5 Little Peppers and how they grew. I told them, so we've had this for like over a month. And I was like, we still haven't started this yet, guys. We're just going to try it out today. I'm going to read you chapter 1, and we're going to decide, are we interested in this and we want to keep going with it, or am I taking it back to the library? And I read chapter 1 and they were super interested in it. So we're going to keep going with it. So that is on my list for November, is to read that book. Also, from traveling the States, because we're going to Sturbridge Village, which is in Massachusetts, we are going to do the pages for Massachusetts from this Traveling the States guide from the Waldock Way. That is also on my list. And if it's not, I need to add it. I guess I didn't put it on here. All right, Massachusetts. All right, I put Playful Pioneers on there. We're going to continue through. We're in the middle of On the Banks of Plum Creek. That goes along with Playful Pioneers. We're going to continue pulling from Peaceful Preschool. We're actually going to start this. I can't remember if I shared this yet. This is a unit from Campfire Curriculums called Survive Off the Land. And so I'm excited to do this with them. This takes like a deep dive into chickens, which is actually really interesting for us because we just started eating eggs again after a few years of being completely plant-based. We've started adding in eggs again, which is a really interesting story. But I thought it'd be cool to do a deep dive into chickens and eggs, which is not all this unit is about, but it's what the beginning is about. So I will let you guys know how this goes. This is on our list for November. I did put Christian heroes on there because I will probably have them choose their Christian heroes then and now. Independent read. I do want to try to start this because I've had this and been meaning to, the Answers book, to focus on theology and apologetics and all the things, especially with my older 2 boys. So I hopefully will start this in November. And then I think lastly, there might be 2 more things. Anyways, I've had this for a while. This is the Health and the Physical Body unit from The Good and the Beautiful. And so I plan to go through this with my kids. They have their little student journals. There are a couple of picture books that go with it. And then this chapter book, which we'll probably use as a read aloud, or I'll give it as an independent read to my 7th grader because it's a level 7. So hopefully we will get to that. I feel like because we did natural medicine and this is usually like cold and flu season and we're focusing on health and natural remedies and just continuing to learn holistic wellness. I feel like this will be really interesting to look at because I also want to get to Intro to Psychology from Gather Round Homeschool this year, but I feel like let's finish not finish because we'll always be learning these things, but finish kind of learning about our physical bodies and health, and then we'll get into mental health, which I'm really, really interested in and excited about, especially because it's from a biblical worldview. Last but not least is we are going to use our Woodland Knowledge Crate, which is the newest knowledge crate that they came out with, and I am going to be sharing about that in another video very soon, so be on the lookout for that. My daughter has been loving this multiplication board game. So thinking again about unschooling and child-led rhythms and child-led learning, she is so interested in multiplication, and it is not in her math curriculum yet. So she's like writing out multiplication facts in notebooks like it's her job. She was not assigned to do that. She was not suggested to do that. She is just interested in learning multiplication. And so I pulled this out. I've had it in the closet. The other day, instead of doing her math curriculum, I was like, do you want to do this instead of your math curriculum? And she was so excited and loved it so much. We were able to have my 3 and 4-year-old do it with us. Obviously, we had to give them a ton of help, but they felt included and she was getting practice for multiplication in. So it was a win-win. So that is something that I highly recommend. I think it's like $10 on Amazon if you're interested in it. It's super fun. There's no winner. So it's a game, but I like that there's no winner because sometimes that can get annoying when people get sad that they didn't win and all of that stuff. Oh, we did finish. That was another thing we did in October. We finished this Bear Grylls book. We started with the Mountain Challenge. It is the book series that goes along with the survival unit study from the Waldock Way. I told you guys I was unsure about it because in the beginning there was so much talk about millions of years ago. And for me, I really lean more towards young earth creation, what the Bible says, what seems to line up more with what the Bible says. And so I struggle with that, but it's in so many books and you can choose to skip over it. You can choose to use it as a discussion point, or you can choose to avoid it altogether. I feel like in the younger ages, I would recommend avoiding it so it doesn't get confusing. And then as they get older, it's helpful for them to understand that the secular world and even some of the Christian world believes that the earth is millions of years old. We do not believe that, or I do not believe that based on the Bible. And then encourage them to make their own conclusions, to dig into scripture and to see what they believe as they get older. But when they're younger, I feel like it's a little too confusing. So not fully sure if I endorse this yet. So it's kind of like proceed at your own risk. I did enjoy it. The storyline, because it does teach a lot of survival skills through story. So I love learning things through story. It's just my personality. My older boys did also feel the same way, like they enjoyed learning through the story. It is a little bit young for them. They're 12 and 15, so I wouldn't have selected this if it was just them. But my 3 and 4-year-old were also able to follow along to an extent. My 8-year-old was definitely able to follow along, and so it was pretty good. The older boys were more interested in this because it got really like more factual about survival skills. So if you're looking for a survival unit study and some of those things that I mentioned don't bother you, then I would recommend it for you. But now I truly think that is it. I think that's everything. So let me know how your October went. I would love to hear. Let me know if we have any similar plans and goals for November. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Most of what I mentioned, I'll try to remember to get into the description box below. If you're looking for something and it's not there, just ask. If you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and stick around. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not already following me over on Instagram, you can follow me there at rooted_homelife. I hope to see you in one of my next videos. And until next time, stay rooted.